All right, let's talk about how do we perform a two-mean hypothesis test for two populations when the population standard deviation is known. And to do that, we're going to use RGuroo. So the first problem says an educational consulting group claims that there is a difference in the mean student loan debt of students who attended private four-year colleges and students who have attended out-of-state public four-year colleges. The student loan debt of 30 off-state public four-year colleges at the time of graduating college are taken. We're going to assume that the population standard deviation of student loan debt is $5,000 for both the private college attendees and the public college attendees, and that the student loan debt it's normally distributed for both of the colleges. Let the student who attend private four-year colleges be the first sample, and then the students who attended out-of-state public four-year colleges be the second sample. The consulting group conducts a two-mean hypothesis test at a 5% level of significance to test if there is evidence of a difference in student loan debt between the two groups. So we are going to, first of all, recognize who our null hypothesis and alternative hypotheses are. So number one, the null hypothesis always says that the mean for both of our groups are the same. So this null hypothesis right here is telling me that the mean for student loan debt for our first population is the same as the mean of student loan for our second population. Our first population be the private college attendees, and the second population be the out-of-state college, right? So the private is group number one, and the public it's population number two. So the null hypothesis is always that assuming that the means are the same. The alternative is the one that comes from what we're trying to figure out. So we are trying to test if there is evidence of a difference in student loans between the two groups. So then we are saying that the mean for the students who attend private colleges is different than the mean student loan for the students who attend the out-of-state public. So then our null hypothesis should look like this. So the mean for the population number one, it's different than population number two, with the null hypothesis of the mean being the same. All right, so once we have that, here's our data, and then we'll move that to RGuroo. So here is the null hypothesis again, the alternative hypothesis. So we're doing a two-tailed test. Our level of significance is 0.05. Here is the 30, the data for the 30 randomly selected students who attend the private and the public out-of-state schools. So we are going to do the tests. We need to figure out who is the test statistic and what's the p-value. But before doing that, we are going to download this. And we are going to RGuroo. And first of all, we need to import this data set. So we go here, we import the data set. We need to choose the file as always. So this is the data set. Open. I always change the name, so I'm just going to call this schools. I upload this. Here is the summary, and as you can see, RGuroo is a little different than before. They just did an upgrade on the system. So here is the summary for the schools, for the variables, for the private and the public, which are our two variables. So we're going to close this. This is the data set in RGuroo. So then now I'm going to perform the test. So we're going to analysis, mean inference, and we need to choose two population because that's what we have right now. So we are going to select our data set, which is down here, schools. Once we have that, from the problem, we know who goes in variable number 1 and who goes in variable number 2. So this is population number 1 and population number 2. So here it's telling us to let the student who attended private colleges be the first sample. So then when we go here, the private is our first sample, and then the students who attend the public will be the second sample. So then our public, it's the second sample. As soon as you choose private and public, this is filled out. So for population number 1, which is the students who attend the private school, we have the sample mean, we have the sample standard deviation, and we have the sample size. We know the standard deviation of the population, which is 5,000, right? It's telling you population standard deviation of student load is going to be 5,000 for both groups. So then this in here is going to be 5,000. And this in here will also be 5,000. Once we have that, we go to population 1, 2 in here. And we go to test of hypothesis. Our significance level is 0.05, again here, given to us. And the alternative hypothesis. So if we have a mu1 different than mu2, just think about just a little math in here. If we move this mu2 to the left, this is a number, right? So this is going to be a subtraction. It will be mu1 minus mu2. So here you see the mu1 minus mu2. If I subtract mu2 from the right side, I'll end up with a 0. So here goes a 0. And we keep our symbol. So it's a different than, which is the exclamation point and the equal sign. So this in here is telling me that the difference, it's different than 0, meaning that there is a difference. So again, this mu1 minus mu2, it's this same thing that we have in here. The only difference is that we are subtracting mu2 for both sides. So we have mu1 minus mu2 on the left side. And on the right side, we have mu2 minus mu2, which is a 0. All right. We know the standard deviation of the population. Every time we know the standard deviation of the population, we are doing a C statistic test as our method. And then once we have that, we click in the eye and we have our output. So we have our output. We need the test statistic and we need the p-value rounded to 2 decimal places. So test statistic is this one in here. That it's 7.08, but because we have a 5, this in here is going to be a 7.09 rounded to 2 decimal places. The p-value, this is a 1.38 times 10 to the power of minus 12. Scientific notation, this means that you're moving your decimal point 12 times to the left. So this is very small. So I'm just going to do a 0.00 to account for the 2 decimal places, but it's a very small number. So that's how we represent it in here in RGuroo. Right, so we got that correct. Again, test statistic, p-value. This E minus 12 is your scientific notation to let you know that you need to move your point, this decimal point here, 12 times to the left because it's a negative exponent. All right, so once we do that, we need to use that information to write a conclusion. So what is the conclusion with a p-value of about 0? When we compare that p-value of 0 with a 0.05 level of significance, our p-value is less, meaning that we have the evidence to reject the null hypothesis, all right? So we reject the null hypothesis, and we always say there is sufficient evidence at the 0.05 level of significance to conclude that there is a difference in student loans debt between the 2 groups. All right, and so I hope that the video is helpful in showing you how to conduct a 2-mean hypothesis testing using RGuroo.